Today it's time for part 2 of metal casting from Seashells. I'm going to try and make something actually useful out of this mould. So if you've watched the previous episode, you know that I made this, which is a casting of a seashell, and actually that's the casting of the inside of the seashell. That video is linked in this card and in the description if you want to go and see it, if you haven't already seen that. But what I want to do today is to actually make something a little bit more useful out of this mould. And I think I'm going to try to make a handle for a chest of drawers. So that will fix onto the flat surface of the wood like that, so it won't be a concentric handle. But what I need to do is find a way to mount a screw into there. Now I could just actually drill a hole in there, cut that off, file it round and mount that and screw that in and tap it in. Pewter's quite a soft metal though, so we would probably lose that thread. And I could solder it in or braze it in or whatever, but I think that's going to be a little bit too much hassle. So here's my theory, is drill a hole through this mould in the right place so that I can insert a machine screw sticking out so that the machine screw is inside the void inside, and then that'll all close up, and then cast metal into the void, and the metal will envelop the end of the screw head, which means it hasn't got any chance of coming out. That's the theory. It could be interesting. I don't know whether this is going to work or not, and I might end up ruining my mould here, but I can always make another one. So the first thing to do is to figure out where it's going to be. So I'm going to want my handle to go into the thickest part of the shell, so I want it to go in about there. I can clean that off later, that's just a mark for reference. Now what I'm going to do is put this back into the mould it came out of and try and put it in the right place so it's all in register, which is there, as evidenced by the fact that that all closes up properly. If you get this in the wrong place, we'd find it doesn't close up. Yeah, I think that's in the right place. Okay, and now if I just leave the shell in place and peel back here, I should be able to see where that goes in. So it's going in there. So I need to drill through this silicone to get to there. So I reckon right about there. Let's see if this is even going to work. Never actually tried drilling through silicone before. I think this hole would actually kind of heal up on its own if necessary anyway. So I think I got that right. Actually, I think I've got that spot on. Good. Okay, so let's see. I can take that out now. This is trickier than I thought. Right, what I'll do is I'll just push that through so we can find it. And then with the end of my machine screw, follow that back through like that. Okay, everything's back together. Part line is nicely closed. Got my copper rings on there to hold that shut. And the screw head, if you can see it, is just hanging inside the void there. I don't know if you can hear the wind blowing outside, but that means I'm going to have to do my casting indoors again today, which I don't really like, but if I was to try to run that little gas stove outside, it would just blow out. Anyway, one thing I did notice is that actually there's no visible part line on these two castings. Well, that one was done inside the shell, so that doesn't count. But this one, there's no actual part line, so it would be somewhere up here. But there is nothing. There is no visible part line at all, which means this is actually quite a good mould, and it closes completely without creating a part line. That's by the by, anyway. So now let's go and cast some metal in there and see what we get. Setup very similar to before. Bucket of water for safety, my little gas stove, and an old saucepan that I use for melting pewter. Hopefully I have enough pewter here for this project. I don't know why that's gone yellow on the surface. Oxidation, no doubt, and yeah, interestingly sort of crystalline look to the top of this pewter here. I wonder if there's quite a bit of bismuth in that one. Anyway, safety glove for when I need it. But first, let's get this little stove going. And we'll get the pewter melting. Now I don't intend to fill this quite as full as I did with the other ones, but I will try to come up above the level of the shell and partially fill that funnel. Right, let's go. So again, I'm just going to shake the dross to the back. Looks to be enough. Now I've just got to let that cool and solidify, and then we'll take it out and see whether this whole idea worked. Now for the part I hadn't quite worked out, because I've now got to extract this shell, including a piece of screw sticking out of it, from this mould. I hadn't really thought this through very hard, but I'm going to do this while it's still warm. It's completely set. The metal has cooled enough to be hard, but I thought I'd do it while it's warm because the silicone will be that much more pliable. I think I might just need to untwist these copper rings to get them off. Okay, that's my copper rings off, and then let's have a look. It does look like it's worked, but what I've got to try to do now is ease that metal casting out of there in such a way that it doesn't tear the mould. Oh, it's going to work. It's going to work. Yeah, not easy. Well, didn't think that through at all. I suppose what I could do, and what I think I will do, is I'm going to make another part line just right here, which I'll have to do very carefully because this metal's still quite hot. So I'm just going to cut down to that screw, like that. That will close up again anyway, and that will show me where I've got to put the screw if I do this again. And then that comes out of there with the screw embedded in it. That's pretty much as good as I could have hoped for. I'll get that in the water and we'll have a look at it when it's cooled down. And yeah, my mould, so it's got an extra line in it now, but what I can do now is use that to locate the screw. That'll close up again and it'll all close up tight. Still usable. And there's the casting before finishing. So that screw is now thoroughly embedded in there. The only way that's coming out is if you melted that out or cut it off. So that's done what I wanted to. Now I've just got to trim off this sprue, a little bit of filing, and then give it a polish. Well, that went pretty much completely to plan, I would say, and I'm quite happy with the result here. There is a little bit more porosity on the surface compared to the previous casting, but I actually don't think it really matters with a piece like this because it's got a certain rustic charm to it that imperfections simply improve. That might be where I heated the pewter a little bit hotter this time, and so any atmospheric moisture inside the mould might have bubbled and steamed a little bit. So what we got, in case it isn't completely obvious, is a handle for a chest of drawers or a small cupboard that would be fixed through the wood like this and then bolted on from the inside. And obviously if there's too much of that protruding screw there, you could cut that off with a junior hacksaw. And that will just fix on the outside of the cupboard like that. Now the only drawback with this is you can't have opposite pairs. You can't have mirrored pairs because it's made from a natural seashell and they only spiral in one direction in each species. And that'd just be a kind of feature of them that they would match rather than mirror. So really happy with that. Still kind of proof of concept here really, because I think the next thing to do is to try that process with resin. But I think it'll be a lot easier this time because I've got that cut line there now and I can just slip that screw in to the required place and get it in just like before. And sure, it'll need a bit more persuasion to close up that hole, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, I'll just go and fix this on a cupboard so you can see the kind of effect that I was going for. I don't know if I'm going to make any more of these. This is, as I say, really a proof of concept at this point. I might make a set and then try and do a makeover of a piece of furniture and give it a kind of seasidey feel. Maybe paint it up in beach hut type colours. So yeah, in summary, I'm really happy with how that went. That went almost exactly to plan. And yeah, part 3 is going to be casting resin, I think, into here to make a similar thing, but see if we can do it with resin into the same mould. I think it might need a little bit of a clean out first, but it still seems to be standing up fairly well. Now if you wanted some decorative handles and you didn't want to go to the trouble of making a silicone mould and melting pewter and so on, it goes without saying that what you could actually do is just collect some whelk shells like this and push in some epoxy putty in there and embed the screw head into the epoxy putty. Wait for that to set and you could varnish them or paint them or just leave them plain like that. And you could make drawer handles out of natural whelk shells. Obviously that would save a lot of time. I'm quite happy with this result though, and there are places where this would fit that maybe this might not. So that was part 2 of casting seashells in pewter, actually making something practical this time. I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching and I hope to see you again soon.